Welcome all. Come one, come all. One second, I am just wait for everybody to come in. I am putting my thumbnail up. So how is everybody doing tonight? It's Thursday. We're almost through the week, thank God. It felt like a long week to me. I don't know why, but it really, really has. So I'm not planning on being on super late tonight, but some bombshells that came out today about the case of that Michigan woman, Lynette Hooker, who was supposedly on a return trip from Abaco Inn with her husband and bounced out of their dinghy and fell into rough seas and was never seen from again. And this happened April 4th, so Saturday before Easter. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's come out. I was doing my chores today and I was clicking back and forth watching Ashley Banfield, and I was just jaw on the ground with some of the stuff that she was saying. And hi, Firewife. Oh, no worries. I just started. So no worries at all. I'm setting my thumbnail, and I'm not going to cam up tonight because my eyes, something has bloomed outside and my eyes are itchy and red and I look scary. So other than that, yeah, I am going to go over. Let me put this. Let me get my phone out of the way. And the right one. So yeah, I'm going to review some of the things that she went over. Hi, Emery. Welcome. And if you guys are just getting here, please hit the thumbs up button for me. Hi, Holly. And if you are new, please hit the subscribe button and the notification so you know when we go live and have our crime discussions. Tonight's just going to be crime, no claws. So let's get into it. I was astonished when I heard some of the stuff that I heard today. Let's see. Let's get her up there. So I'm trying to get all my screens in the right position. Okay. I think I got it now. So yeah, we've had a lot. Past couple days we've been talking a lot about this story, and it's out of the Bahamas. This couple who has retired, sold everything they own. They're living on this sailboat, 46-foot sailboat, and most of us agree, and I have honestly not seen one person that disagrees, that the husband's story is not gelling. Everything says that the weather on this little Abaco Sea that they were on that evening was absolutely perfectly clear. There are videos of it. There are a lot of people have released current maps, weather maps, depth maps, all of these things. And everything points to the fact that if she had bounced out of the boat, out of the back of the boat, like he has stated, that The deepest water would have maybe been 14, 15 feet, and that's out. But they were still kind of near the shoreline, near the more shallow part. It was not high tide. She was a diver. She was a good swimmer. She'd grown up on water and in boats her entire life. This was not someone that didn't know what she was doing. It's been said that safety was one of her. She took safety as very important. So she was very big on life jackets, on knowing what the weather was, knowing what the depth is. This sailboat was a keel boat, so it has a large blade that runs underneath it to help it slice through the water and steer. If you own a boat like that, you're going to know what depth of water you're getting into. Any person that has any kind of boat that's bigger than just, again, like a dinghy or something like that, is going to make sure, because you don't want to damage your prop. You don't want to beach your boat, things like that. And he has claimed in a phone conversation to a friend that he doesn't really understand the tides and the depths and the currents around this area, that he just kind of relies on what did he say? He relies on the information coming from Port Hope or whatever it was. But he's now caught in a phone conversation talking in depth about tides and things like that. So he keeps contradicting himself. And we know after swearing that he was going to never give up on the search for his wife, he then ran back to California to allegedly stay with his sick mother, who was sick when they left on this journey 2 years ago, was very sick. And Ashley Banfield let it out that he's probably not staying with his mother. So we're going to watch this. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, just for time's sake and everything. But, yeah, we're going to watch this and we're going to discuss this, because there's some stuff that really just didn't sit right with me.
And it is, again, a huge piece of the puzzle. We have received an exclusive photo that shows Lynette Hooker on the deck of the pool at the Abaco Inn at exactly 5:44 p.m. on the night before Easter, April 4th. Now,
so there she is, standing there. She's taking a selfie. She's got that green cover up on. And we can see this. This is the Atlantic. That is Whitecaps. That's, I believe that's the Atlantic, because the rest would have land out through here.
why is that significant? First of all, if you're just joining us on this particular story, thank you for being here. Love having you. Please don't forget to subscribe. Anybody who's watching, please don't forget to subscribe. Independent journalists, it really helps us to stay on this story. There is a whole backstory here. And we have an entire playlist that will get you up to speed on everything that's happened in this case. Photograph is seen walking away from the Abaco Inn at 7 p.m., right at sunset. He's caught on a photograph walking towards the docks where his dinghy would be parked, but Lynette.
Okay, so this is the photo that we looked at yesterday. This is him. Now, if he's walking around, he's coming through here, around down through here, where the dock is, where the dinghy is. The dinghy should be just, I believe, the other side of here. But there's no Lynette.
That's not with him. We don't know where he left her. Did she go down to the docks first and leave him behind? Is he heading down to the docks first and she's back up, maybe using the restroom? We don't know. All we know is that we see him crossing the road and getting close.
So that's the question. Where was she?
Close to the pathway that takes you to the docks to get into the dinghy. He swears he didn't get into the dinghy with Lynette until 7:30 p.m. and then motored out the 12 to 15 minutes towards their yacht Soulmate, where hell on wheels happened. Suddenly 2 to 4 foot seas and gusts of, massive.
Again, it's 7 o'clock. It takes approximately 12 to 15 minutes for them to get from this dock out to where their boat was tied, their big sailboat.
18 knot winds bounced her off the back of the dinghy, and it was so dark And the currents were so strong and the waves so high, I couldn't see her. And we got separated, and now it's dark, and I've floated 4 miles in 9 hours and beached up on Marsh Harbor. Okay, so first of all,
Also, a trip that, according to the Coast Guard, should have only taken about 20 minutes, maybe half hour if he was just floating, based on the currents.
it does get dark at 8 o'clock. But it will be really key to find out if Lynette was in that dinghy with Brian. If that photograph showed him getting into that dinghy at some point afterwards with her at 7:30, even then, it's still really far-fetched. Because you'd be back at Soulmate by 7:45, and it's still daylight. I was there at that time. I can attest. Still daylight. Doesn't get dark till 8. Does not take half an hour to get from the...
The expert that she had on the other day proved that he was sitting there at approximately 7 o'clock, and it was a bright, sunny day behind him.
dinghy dock out to Soulmate, maybe 12, maybe 15 minutes. So why does the picture of Lynette at the pool at the Abaco Inn at 5:44 matter? It's not so much the time, because we already know that at least Brian is walking towards the dock at 7. And we saw at least Lynette's daughter Carly and her boyfriend Steve saw surveillance video of Brian and Lynette walking at the Abaco Inn around 6:38 p.m. So why does 5:44 matter? It's not so much the time that matters, it's the timing that matters. When you zoom in...
And I still wonder if she ever left land that night.
in to Lynette taking a selfie right there in the wind with the Atlantic in the backdrop, you can see on her left wrist is a very light pattern band, and what appears to me and many others as her powder pink Apple Watch. That she...
An Apple Watch. So now this is what, like this is yet another case where an Apple Watch is involved.
is seen wearing in so much of her social media. I mean, it's such a powder pink Apple Watch that it almost looks like a white tan line. But there she is, holding up her camera, doing selfies at the left side of the pool as you're looking towards the Atlantic. That would be the north side of the pool, okay? And it sure looks like that is her powder pink Apple Watch. All that matters. Before I tell you the significance of her...
Another thing that I noticed in this picture is this woman is physically fit. She's not overweight. She's not out of shape. She's 59 years old and she's got these great legs. That's somebody who's swimming and exercising and, it's going to be okay. I'm going to play this for a second. I've got to say goodnight to my oldest. I'll be right back.
Having the Apple Watch at this time, I also want to just draw your attention to the far right-hand side of the pool, the south side of the pool. There's Brian. He's sitting on a sun chair facing out towards the Atlantic, getting some sun at 5:44 p.m. And that should tell you it's still suntanning weather at 5:45. I've been there. You could be suntanning at 7 and 7:30. It only starts to get a little dusky at about 7:45. And even then, I may or may not put my running lights on. Those are the red and green lights and the white light at the back of a boat. Red and green at the front of the boat, white light at the back of the boat. If I were driving my boat in the dusky conditions that I was in the Bahamas, right there at Elbow Key at 7:45, I may or may not put my running lights on. Just because I'm a super safe captain, I probably would, but you didn't need them. So now you know at 7:45 how light it is. You could absolutely see someone bobbing in the water. You would not get separated from them. And mark my words, my friend, the seas were not 2 to 4 feet. I've already showed you the evidence yesterday from the surveillance cameras. Just
right there. This is the conditions of the sea when they left. It's daylight. It's calm. That's a perfect that's perfect. Perfect.
a quarter mile north of them at the Firefly Inn. Surveillance cameras show it's dead calm. It's lovely. Maybe a ripple as you come out from the bay, but it ain't 2 to 4 foot seas. It ain't roiling winds. No way, no how. And I will also tell you that one of the fire and rescue personnel went to the exact spot where Brian swears Lynette bounced off the back of the dinghy. He went there this morning. I'm recording this on April 22nd on Wednesday. He went there this morning. The wind, speed, and direction were identical when he went there. And he did this to do a test. And he said these words. I got to eat my words because I told you before I thought it was kind of rough, but I did an absolute replicate wind condition test, and it was calm. In the lee of Elbow Key, with exactly the same 18-knot winds blowing, it was calm. The waters were absolutely not.
Well, one of the things that we kept talking about last night, too, is everyone has said how calm it was, but they said that the weather in the Atlantic was like 2 to 4 foot waves.
2 to 4 feet, they weren't even 1 foot. It was calm. So Brian's story that all of a sudden the waves were 2 to 3, 4 feet and it was rough and the wind was screaming and oh God, I got separated and the current took her away. No, I already told you no, but now it's been double confirmed by somebody who originally thought it might have been rough. And he said, no, I got to eat my words. It wasn't rough. It absolutely wasn't. When I did the retest with the exact same conditions, hell to the no. So if Lynette had that watch and bounced off, well, we'd start to know about the activity on her watch, because it doesn't matter where that watch is. It doesn't matter at this point regarding.
And I wonder if he thought about that. And maybe this is part of the reason why they weren't releasing the footage. So that he could, I don't know, maybe clear out an activity log or something like that, because he hadn't thought about it.
The technology where Lynette is, her watch has her activity. Her watch knows what she did. If that watch by any chance ended up getting closer to Soulmate, that watch and her phone would reconnect with the Starlink that they had on Soulmate. So if you're thinking, if you're trying to game what happened, it's entirely plausible that maybe Brian ain't telling the truth, right? Maybe she didn't bounce off.
And that's, again, they have Starlink. It's not just for TV. They're using it to get all of their weather, currents, depths, all of that stuff.
Maybe they made it back to their yacht Soulmate, maybe 12 to 15 minutes from the Abaco Inn. In calm water, I'm telling you. It might have been a few ripples, but it was not a screamer, and there were no toppling waves and nothing that would bounce you off the back. By the way, that's not bouncy. That's a hard bottom and fairly hard-hulled dinghy. It's not like a rubberized bouncy dinghy. And you'd have to go over some significant waves to be bouncing off the back. And then to be separated in this raging wind and waves, no. So let's just say they made it back to Soulmate, because that is possible.
And it is possible they made it back, because remember, the daughter said that she found it in disarray inside the boat when she went to go search.
Well, then all the electronics are going to connect, right? Her watch, it's connected to her phone. Why do I know that? Because I spoke with her daughter, and her daughter said, absolutely, my mom's watch was connected to her phone because she used Find My Phone all the time, and I do it all the time too. Like, I lose my phone all the time. It's just beside me. I do it all the time. I use Find My Phone, and apparently Lynette did too. So her watch, like mine, is connected to her phone. And so that watch, if it went back up on board Soulmate, would automatically connect to the Starlink.
And her, do we know, was her phone found on the boat, or did she have it in that dry bag? I know it was said passports, keys to the boat, her wallet, I believe. I think that's what he said.
And so would her phone. So that data is going to exist. And if Brian had his watch and his phone, that's going to connect too. I mean, I don't know about his watch. It's different. It's not an Apple Watch. It's more of a Navionics kind of watch, which I have 100 questions about. But if Lynette got back up on board, there's going to be evidence of that.
That's interesting, because even though it may not be an Apple Watch, it's still a smartwatch, and it might have coordinates, at least some kind of, it has to have some kind of something like that to keep data.
If she wrote an email, if she looked at pictures or sent a picture, if she did anything, there's going to be evidence of that. I am fascinated. If we will at one time find out what the data dump is going to tell us. We don't know yet, but we will. We will at some point. So here's the other story about the watch. A couple of months ago, Brian told Lynette's daughter, Carly, that he bought a brand new watch for Lynette because Lynette's battery was dying so fast, she needed a new watch. But he didn't buy her an Apple Watch. He bought her another kind of watch, and it didn't fit. And so she didn't wear it. And both she and Brian, Lynette and Brian, were going to give it to Carly because Carly was just there visiting her mom, like just a couple months ago. And Carly forgot to take it with her when she went home to Michigan. That watch was green. And again, it wasn't an Apple Watch. And we know this. We know that when the Royal Bahamians, shall we say, seized some things, as you would in a police investigation when you're doing a criminal investigation, when they went on board Soulmate, they got a watch. They got Lynette's watch. But Lynette may have had two. There may have been that green watch that she was going to give to Carly. It was new. It was supposed to replace her Apple Watch, but she wasn't wearing it. So it might have been on board.
And her old one, hopefully, is still connected to everything. I mean, if she was wearing it, there's pictures of her wearing it that day. She wouldn't wear it if it weren't, you wouldn't think.
But that pink watch, the Apple Watch that she wore in all her social media, and it looks like she was wearing at the Abaco Inn, which is the last place that Lynette is seen alive. It looks like she's wearing that pink Apple Watch. So watch this space on what that's going to mean once the data all comes in. I can't wait. The digital exhaust catches everybody. Caught Brian Koberger, the idiot. Took his phone and turned it off. Drove his own car to the murder scene. I mean...
And that's what, hopefully, because this guy's not smart. He's not smart at all. I want to find the spot, though, that... Let's see. I'll let her go, because I think it's further up ahead.
Even a guy who's a PhD student in criminology fucked up his digital. So I'm thinking some dude who didn't even know how to load WhatsApp onto his phone, apparently, he's not the digital Einstein. He may not have known if they made it back.
And he's probably very intoxicated.
To soulmate. It's just a very interesting piece of the puzzle, but we do know that the Royal Bahamians have one of Lynette's watches. Do they have the green one that was new, that was sitting on the boat because Carly didn't take it home with her? Or do they have the old one, the pink one, that was on her wrist just before Brian says she disappeared? Before I go on, I have one more thing I need to tell you about in this episode. Brian got himself a new lawyer, a Michigan lawyer from Grand Rapids, and she did an interview with ABC in which she...
Yeah, I forgot about this. He got a new lawyer from Grand Rapids because that's where they're from.
He said that Brian never hurt Lynette. No matter what Lynette's daughter and Lynette's mother, no matter what they say, Brian never hurt Lynette. Well, guess what you're about to hear?
We know that to not be true. There's court paperwork that documents that he was charged with DV or with CA, and that was for slamming his daughter up against the wall, I believe it was, and putting his hands around her throat and telling her to call him sir. And later on, there's a interview with her best friend, and things were not good between them.
To hear an interview with one of Lynette's dearest friends since 9th grade. And guess what? She has something completely different to say about whether Brian ever hurt Lynette, and she's got the photos. It is a very different story. Here's the tease. She says he absolutely did. These are just allegations. They're never proven in court, but there has been police activity. There are injuries that were photographed. Lynette said things to her friend, to her mother, about being injured by Brian and about wanting to leave him because things were bad on the boat. You're going to hear that.
And this is recently. You know, I know there was some texts and different things from 2 years ago that popped up. These are things that recently happened, as recent as March 11th.
Interview in just a moment. Something else I want to bring up with you that really sticks in my craw. A lot of Brian's own words are coming back to haunt him, and I have his words because I got his texts with the fire and rescue guys. So you know that Brian's story is that Lynette went overboard, took the electric key by pulling the lanyard with her, and the other spare key was in the dry bag that somehow she grabbed as well because she was driving with her hand on the tiller, but still was able to grab her dry bag and grab the lanyard and bounce out the back. I know, I'm with you. It's horse shit.
Matrix style, right? That's how we all fall backwards out of things. We grab, all the stuff that was on the bag would have been on the floor, because in every picture you see, that bag's on the floor by her.
However, this is his story. She bounced off the back, somehow pulling the lanyard with her. There is no wristlet. There is no little wristlet like you're on a jet ski and you put a wristlet on, so if you bounce off, the jet ski stops and you can swim back to it. No, there wasn't. It was just a string
Hi, Truth. Good to see you.
That hung straight down. So you'd have to, as you're driving, right, the tiller, let's say I'm driving and I've got my hand in front of me and I'm driving towards you. So she's bounced, because he says she's driving. So she would have to take her hand off of the hull in front of her that's stabilizing her, grab her dry bag, which she always puts down. And by the way, it's not the kind of dry bag you're going to wear. It's like a long briefcase. So if you do that, it's hanging kind of at your hip and falling out and not, it's just not safe. You put the dry bag inside the dinghy. And that's where she's always driving with it, inside the dinghy. But you'd have to take your hand off.
And I keep going back to, it was such rough seas. He was the one that was just sitting in the bow of the boat. She was sitting in the back, holding on to the motor, anchored with one hand and her feet anchored. That's how you would sit. It doesn't make sense that she would bounce out
of the hull, right? And you'd have to grab the dry bag as you're falling out, hand on the tiller's coming this way, and you'd have to reach down and grab the lanyard and whoa, fall out. That is not happening. Ladies and gents, I've been in a boat for 58 years. That's not happening. I've driven any number of tiller boats. I've lost the tiller and almost fallen out. That's not happening. When you bounce out of a boat or you go over a wave or you're losing it, you're grabbing on for stability. You're not grabbing.
And this is, again, you can see the sandy bottom of most of this area. This is that Tahiti beach that they were at. And this is the little barge boat that comes in that's a bar.
Things down on the floor or a string on the engine. All that. But the dry bag is a question because no one's ever found it. No one's ever found the dry bag. It hasn't washed up on any shores in the Sea of Abaco. It's bright green, and it would show up.
Yeah, we saw this the other day, right? She had it with her at the Abaco Inn, right there next to her. And that was what we talked about last night, probably like she used it like her purse,
With all the searches that they've done in the Sea of Abaco, and if you think that's crazy, it's the ocean. It is not. It is the Sea of Abaco. It's like a swimming pool. It's 4, 5, 8 feet deep. At its very, very deepest at high tide, it's like 15 feet. Huh? You can see the bottom. They grid searched everything. The Coast Guard grid searched that. They put drones over it. They did everything. They were in boats It's not in the Sea of Abaco. It's not on the shores of the Sea of Abaco. It's bright green. It's a beacon.
And let me correct myself because I just realized, yes, she did have her phone with her because she was taking a selfie. So we know she had her phone with her at the end at 5:45.
And if it sank, you would see it. Bright, bright green. But Brian had something really weird to say. Lots of weird things to say. Really weird thing to say about Lynette's dry bag. He's texting back and forth with one of the search and rescue guys because they had found the green, I call it like a swimming floaty because it's really not a rescue or a life jacket. It's what he says he threw to Lynette. It was one of the seat cushions that they sit on. You can see it in all the social media. He sits on a blue one. Often she sits on a green one, or sometimes they are on opposite, but you can see what these cushions look like. When that green one was found just 100 yards south of where his dinghy washed up on Marsh Harbor, this is the text conversation. He asks the captain, was there a similarly colored dry bag nearby? It might have been slightly.
So this is when he's talking to, this is the, I think, search and rescue, like she said.
Brighter than that seat cushion. It would have held about 10 pounds. I think it's a typo, but I think he means to say 10 pounds, so a medium-sized one with a black strap. He's asking the captain about, did the dry bag wash up with the floaty that I threw up that's green that you found? And the captain, well, he's not a captain. Brian's mistaken. He thinks that this fire and rescue guy is a captain.
Which kind of struck me because I thought if she had the dry bag in her hand, he knew that she had the dry bag with her because according to him, she grabbed it as she fell out of the boat. Now the cushion he threw to her and was unsure if she caught it. So why would the dry bag and the cushion why would he believe that they would both show up in the same place at the same time? If she was missing and she had a hold of the dry bag, I guess. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me.
He's not a captain. And he kind of wondered why he kept calling him a captain, but he thinks since he welcomed him on board at one point, the search and rescue boat, maybe Brian got it in his mind that he was a captain. But anyway, this was the response from fire and rescue representative. I came and retrieved it just now. Brian then says, and this is key, wasn't there a subdivision or half a dozen houses back there?
So I watched a live earlier today and she had maps up and she was showing that there are these subdivisions in that area. And a lot of them have houses under construction. There's a lot of these kind of very skinny little road trails that go to these different houses through these different subdivisions. There's very, very thick brush. So this would be on the land. And just odd, what would he care about a subdivision back there for? Well,
What are you talking about? I'm talking about finding the dry bag. Was the dry bag next to the green floaty? But now you're talking about a subdivision where there's a half dozen houses? It's just weird. Why would the dry bag be all the way up in a subdivision with a half a dozen houses? Doesn't make any sense. I have no idea why he said that. It just sticks out to me.
Because he's lying about what happened. Because he's trying to figure out a reason or an excuse of why it would be maybe where he remembers leaving it.
And it also sticks out to friends of Lynette. A couple of friends that I've been talking to who are avid boaters. They live aboard. They've been on board. I don't think they've tied up for 2 years anywhere. They've been on board their sailboat. And they have been following every single word that Brian Hooker has said. And they have been lining up all the inconsistencies. And one of the things that Blaine Stevenson has done for me and for you is to actually do a comparison. Roll up a dry bag with your phone and passports, because this is what Brian says Lynette had in her dry bag. Her phone, a couple passports.
So this guy shows an example of the dry bag, how it floats, and the speed at which it floats away from the boat and the dinghy floats away. It's pretty interesting.
The keys, the extra key to the engine, which is just a little, it's almost like a little plastic piece. And you can find their demonstration on YouTube and TikTok. They have the handle Sailing Cameo. But this demonstration is great. Blaine waited for the exact wind, wave patterns, and everything, and decided to roll up a dry bag, much like Lynette usually does. As you can see in her dinghy, she just sort of rolls it up and it's got some air in it. Nobody really pulls all the air out of their dry bag. It's better to have a dry bag with air in it because then it'll float. If it falls in, everything will stay dry and you'll be able to get it. So he rolls up a dry bag very loosely and then he just tosses it in and he measures, could give you.
Let's skip there.
And what does it do in water? So just going to show you our standard dry bag size. much like everybody else's dry bag size. And all it is a plastic bag that you fold over, keeps your stuff dry. But what I have here is I have a speaker about the same weight as a GoPro. I got a cell phone. I've got a passport. I've got house keys. And instead of another passport, because I only have one passport, I'm just throwing in our daily tasks book. And then you just hold the bag open. Dump your items in. And then what we do is we just fold this over, okay? We fold it over once or twice. I usually just do twice. I know my wife does like 2 or 3 times. I am not that stringent on it. And then you buckle it up like this, okay? That's a dry bag. Now, it's not, as you can see, I didn't inflate it intentionally or anything. I just let the natural air that fills in around the items you got in your bag. It's kind of limp. It's kind of how we all keep our dry bags. Again, some people fill it up, roll it over 3 or 4 times till it's tight. Other people are lazy like me. I figure for this demo, being lazy is more closer to failure being a potential, but then we're going to show you what it does in the water.
When he throws it in the water, I'll put it on regular speed so you can see the actual speed that it floats away.
It's going to take me a second to get in the dinghy. All right, we're in our dinghy. There's our boat. The wind is coming from the north. The current is coming actually kind of dead right now, but it is coming from the north, and we are drifting slowly away from the boat. And then this is our dry bag. And if we throw it overboard, that's what it does. Now, as you can see, my dinghy is out of the water more. It catches more wind. The wind is pushing me at a faster pace than the dinghy.
This is regular speed again, regular speed.
Or than the dry bag, sorry. The dinghy is being pushed because we get more windage. The wind is hitting us more, the wind's affecting us more. But the dry bag will just sit there and float, and I have complete confidence in it because I threw my cell phone and my passport in there. And as you can tell, there's the boat. We haven't made it that far. There's the dry bag. And here we are. That's how far away it has gotten in 1 minute. There's our boat. That's how far away we've gotten in roughly 2 minutes. And right now, if I wanted to, it would take me about a minute to take my anchor out of there, throw it overboard. But you can see the distance between my dry bag and my dinghy just based off of windage. Pulling up alongside the dry bag, scooping it up, put it in the dinghy, head back to the mothership. Then we open the dry bag, we unfold it, and if we look in here, we can see a little bit of water got in because I only folded it a couple of times. So that's a little damp. So, people want to know how a dry bag works. That's how a dry bag works. Will I now be folding mine over 3 times? For sure. But it'll even stay afloat while taking on a little bit of water. But it will not float as fast as a dinghy. Our dinghy takes on so much windage that items floating in the water are affected more by the wind.
Super interesting demonstration.
So, what that tells me is if she fell out of the boat, he could have easily either thrown down the anchor and let her swim back to the boat, or he could have lifted the anchor and went out and got her.
My huge thanks to Blaine Stevenson and Sailing Cameo for doing that. Quick word from my sponsor. I've been putting on insurance free more than a debt, and the dog fine owes by ZocDocs now. And this is rich. You have probably heard the comments that Brian Hooker made on tape, right? Friends recording his own words where he's being asked, where were you coming from? Where were you going to? And he sort of rattles off this big, long answer.
Sorry to pause it on that picture. I know it's not very, but remember, he sounded just very inept. Just didn't really know about any of the information that as a person that sails for their life would know.
And in it, he just kind of rattles off that he just doesn't know the tides and the currents or some odd thing here. This is what he said.
So where were you guys coming from and going to? Because that's what I couldn't figure out in any of the Facebook articles I was reading, like how to do a grid pattern search. Like,
well, I don't really understand the currents and tides here. I kind of rely on Hopetown. Okay, so.
Well, that doesn't really square with Brian Hooker's own words that he wrote to the fire and rescue guide.
Exactly. So he doesn't really know. Doesn't make sense.
Okay? Sounds to me like with the text I'm about to read you, Brian Hooker knew a hell of a lot about tides and currents. You ready? This is when he's talking to the fire and rescue representative about a place that used to be called Matt Lowe's Key. Matt Lowe was an old pirate. And recently, Matt Lowe's Key has been...
Hi, Emily. Welcome. This is... With all this stuff that's come out tonight, or earlier today, I hope that they found something on that boat, or her Apple Watch gives it up, because this is just...
purchased and it's under development. It's now called Montage Key. It's beautiful. And at some point soon, it's going to be finished and gorgeous. And I can't wait to see it at that point. But he's...
Just wait till you hear this interview, Truth. It's like mind-blowing. This woman was going through it.
Suggesting that it's possible some of the things that they're looking for, like maybe the dry bag or the ore that he lost, might have floated towards Montage Key, because he thought maybe even Lynette had floated that way, saying almost certainly there's nobody on the key on Easter weekend until maybe tomorrow. It sort of fits with the flood tide till midnight and the ebb tide after, along with that terrible east wind.
I thought he didn't really know about the tides, right? He didn't really know about the tides and currents.
So you know what flood tides are and ebb tides are at midnight and afterwards, Brian Hooker? You know what that is? Then why did you say to your friend on the recording when he's asking you, where were you coming from and where were you going to? Well, I don't really know the tides and the currents. I don't really understand them here.
Oh, no, Truth. I'm sorry.
Bullshit. You know what a flood tide is after midnight and an ebb tide. You know. You lied to that guy when you were telling him all these details. Verbal logorrhea. Check yesterday's episode. It's unbelievable how much this guy said. And when it comes...
That's it. Let him talk. That's what I think part of this is, too. They're just letting him talk. Because the more he talks, the more in trouble he gets himself. He contradicts himself.
Comes to the wind and the waves and the tide. Well, I did a little research and I talked to the best of the best. I talked to these experts in drift patterns, and they've got the gear that tells you everything based on science, not based on opinion or based on...
Well, I've got her on 1.5 speed, so she's even wilder.
on the naked eye. The science of the drift patterns from the night of April the 4th, 7:30 at night, when Brian Hooker says she just bounced off the back in 2 to 4 foot seas and, gale force winds. Okay, so here's what I've learned about that from the experts. They have told me that they have run these drift patterns, and with the wind and the tide and the current as it was that night, there is absolutely no way possible, if Brian Hooker is telling the truth and Lynette Hooker went over the back in the place she went over, there is absolutely no way that her body would not end up in the Sea of Abaco, which again is a great big giant swimming pool. You'd see her, right? Or on the eastern shores.
Oh, that would be everywhere she's not.
Of Elbow Key, through the Toulouse Cut on either the north or the south part of those shores, the shores on the Atlantic.
You can see that. It's very protected in there. This is the sandbar that they were at that afternoon. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
If she went out the Toulouse Cut into the Atlantic the patterns would have blown her back onto the shore on either end of the cut, the south end or the north end of the cut. No other place. And if you want to talk about shark activity or anything like that, they accounted for that too. They have the word particle. Some part of Lynette, clothing, body parts, something, would be in the Sea of Abaco or would have come up on those north and south sides of the Toulouse.
Yeah, a shark's not going to eat a dry bag. It's not going to eat a bathing suit. It's not going to eat a cover-up.
Cut on that eastern shore where the Atlantic is. So there you have it. The science, Brian. The science says it's not possible the way you told the story. Her body just wouldn't have completely vanished. At least, not in the water. Which brings you on land, a whole other story. Was Lynette buried somewhere?
What did we say last night? Did she ever even leave the island? Did she get back to the boat and he put her in that dinghy and take her somewhere on land? Because it just doesn't make sense that she has not been found, that some part of her hasn't been found, that one of her articles of clothing haven't been found, nothing except for the float that he says he allegedly threw out to her.
That's a whole other question.
And I believe happens to be a little ways down from where he landed after floating aimlessly for 8.5, 9 hours in calm seas. Approximately, 4 miles, I think they said, across. Was it? I don't even think it's 4 miles, but across the channel, sea.
And in a complete twist of bizarre irony, I want you to see what I noticed on a text message that Lynette's mother, Darlene, shared with me. It was a message that...
Yeah, this is wow, too. You've got problem, man, woman fighting, solved, boat. Wait till you hear some of this stuff.
Brian sent to her the day after all of this horror, this tragedy unraveled, right? So this is Monday after Easter Sunday. Take a look at his profile picture. I nearly...
That's what I wonder, Emily, is if he... Because the conditions he's talking... Either he put her on land somewhere. Like, one of the thoughts that I have is, did she ever even get in the dinghy from the inn? Did they go back to use the restroom at 6:38? And that's what that's what, accounts for the daughter seeing them walking together at 6:38. Something happened back there. He's known to have a problem putting his hands on his wife's throat. I watched a clip of the interview with his mom yesterday, and she said that he squeezed her neck so hard one time, that she felt something pop in it, and that her shoulder and her neck were in a lot of pain. She couldn't move them for quite a while. So this was something that happened often in their relationship. And there's 12 minutes between 6:38 and 7 o'clock when he's seen walking to the dock by himself. So is she back there where all those subdivisions are? Those new builds?
lost my lunch.
Or, did something happen? Did he go too far on the boat, on the dinghy even? And take her out to deeper waters? And that's why he's talking about 2 to 4 foot waves, wind screaming? Because that was the conditions on the Atlantic that night.
When I saw this, his profile picture depicts basically a problem if a man and woman are yelling at each other and fighting. The solution is a sailboat. Not so sure that was the solution in this particular case. Okay, now I want to move on to this new lawyer that Brian has hired. Probably a good idea, because Brian, I do not like your chances, right? Good thing you got yourself a lawyer. But this lawyer, her name is Crystal Marie Hauser. She's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I guess that kind of makes sense because he's from Michigan. He said he left the Bahamas to see his sick mother in Sacramento.
Oh yeah, here's some tea. I'm not sure. It's kind of like, I'm not like really familiar with the maps yet. I get turned around real easy when I'm trying to look at them. I mean, I think it looks to be like a decent size. There's all these little smaller like islands like that Lubber's Key and the one that she's going to talk about, I think right now, that's was called like Matthew Key, and now it's turning into something else. But that's all a development right there. And it was somewhere where I think, she'll say in a minute, but I think that they were wondering if she possibly could have washed up there.
I don't think he's staying with his mother. I'll just put it that way. Got some intel that he hasn't been staying with his mom.
And so I go back to that when they're sitting by the pool and she's sitting there with her arms crossed. Like, was there somebody else? They were on social media. Was there someone else that he had been talking to, that he had been whatever? Had they gotten in an argument and that's why her arms were crossed? Not because she was cold sitting by the pool?
And this attorney did this interview with ABC in which she suggested that Brian Hooker has never hurt Lynette. Girl. Do you know Brian? Like his mother-in-law knows Brian? Do you know Brian? Like Lynette's besties know Brian?
Well, and the state of Michigan also, because there is public record of his charges.
Have you seen the text and the pictures? Here's how she put it.
Would Brian ever physically harm Lynette?
Absolutely not.
Given how much has been said about Brian Hooker, is there anything that you
This lady makes me so mad.
would like the public to know, those who consider him guilty?
I would ask those watching to treat him the way you would want to be treated, to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Does he have any
He's kind of making it hard.
plans to go back to the Bahamas to help with the search?
I imagine that is where his heart is, but I can't speak on whether or not that's what he will be doing. We all handle things in different ways, and be open-minded.
Yes, he speaks of only how this affects him, not his wife who's missing, presumed lost. He runs away to California, leaving their sailboat there, leaving other people to search for her, after talking about them literally having to use a person of authority to pull him away from that island and searching for her. I do too, because he swore he was going to.
The fact that because Carly and Darlene are making these claims, there's absolutely no evidence to support any of the allegations. Absolutely none.
Well, I'm sure that Carly and Darlene won't appreciate.
There actually are, especially from the night that Lynette went to jail. She had also been hurt that night.
Being characterized that way. They're real close to Brian, right? Darlene is Lynette's mom. Carly is Lynette's daughter. They're desperate for answers about what happened to their loved one. They are mourning. They are suffering. They have no idea where she is or what happened to her. But a lot of the things that Brian Hooker is saying just don't add up. Like total horseshit, if you ask me, because I've been there. The waves and the wind bullshit. That's what Darlene and what Carly are dealing with. Stuff you're saying that didn't exist. Double talk, backing off on things that you said, saying you don't know the current and the tides, and then knowing an ebb tide and a flood tide after midnight. Those are the things that Carly and Darlene are suffering through right now. Brian.
Yeah, that's... But see, I said just keep letting him talk.
And this lawyer, Crystal Marie Hauser, ma'am, with all due respect, I know you have your job to do, but you better get to know your client and his history a little bit better.
Ugh.
And if you need some guidance, I've got that for you, because I called someone who knows Lynette intimately, has known Lynette since 9th grade, texts and communicates fairly regularly with Lynette. Lynette confides in this woman when things are going south, and they went south a lot.
This is her best friend, and she's got a lot to say.
Rachel Shaw spoke to me about specific text messages, photographs.
I just want to say first that this just trigger warning, because she does talk about some things that are that have to do with TV, and so just warning everybody now.
With bruises, desperate attempts to leave Brian, get off the boat, get to the airport, changing her mind, going back to Brian.
My back hurts. That's where I was pinned against the edge of the seat. I took a picture to remind myself.
Let me let Rachel Shaw describe for you her experience with Lynette, the things that Lynette said about Brian and her life with Brian on board, and even way before that. I will say this, these are allegations, not been proven in court. However, this is one woman's account of what her dearest friend told her regularly.
Again, just before I play this, just know that there's, she talks about what, according to her, Lynette texted her and also talked with her about on the phone And she also talks about a plane ticket on March 11th that was bought to fly back home. And there were several other times that she actually, in the 2 years, had flown back home and gotten away from him because it was so volatile and so dangerous. So here we go. And I know I hate pausing, but I have to for, fair use and copyright. So I will try to make it in not so painful spots. So thanks for understanding. Exactly, Emily. Yeah. She's debunked a lot of his statements. Shallow water, not windy, not seeing her because it was too dark. Lots of inconsistent information from him. Yeah, there's not been one thing that has not been debunked. Exactly. That's a perfect word for it, debunked.
Rachel, tell me about your relationship with Lynette.
I've known Lynette since we were in 9th grade. I'm sorry. A very long time. We were friends. She was 2 years older than myself. She graduated 2 years before me, but we never lost contact. She was there for me I remember her coming to my homecoming when I was a senior and I was on homecoming court. Probably one of the most supportive friends I've ever had. Sure, we would go weeks, even months without talking, but we always kept in contact. And
who's got a friend like that literally you cannot speak for months just because you're busy and whatever, but the minute you pick back up the phone, it's like no time has passed, I
always knew when something wasn't right. We lived together for almost, I think, a year and a half, maybe 2 years in the early 90s. I was in her first wedding, her first husband. She's my best. She texted me the Wednesday before she disappeared. I was kind of mad at her. She was like my sister.
And that's the thing. I don't believe they had any children together. I think all of their children were all stepchildren from previous marriages.
Wasn't mad at her. I was just a little mad at her.
Because she hadn't been in touch?
No, because I knew she needed to come home, basically. I knew she was painting that picture that something was off. And I knew that from previous conversations that we had earlier in March. And I felt like she was very worried about what was going on in my life, which my life is very boring, very boring. She's very worried about
just deflecting, probably trying to make it not seem as bad as it was.
My boyfriend, he's got a traumatic brain injury. So I take care of him and it gets kind of stressful. And I have a job in healthcare, very stressful. I work a lot, and she was really trying to get me to come down there. I'm in the process of getting my passport and my real ID. And she was telling me, I want you to come down. You need to get away. You need to take some time off. You haven't had a vacation. And I haven't in a very long time. And I was thinking about it, but then I also knew what was going on, like just prior to that conversation.
Sorry. Yeah, talk to me more about that, because you said that you knew what was going on. You were kind of mad at her. What do you mean by that exactly?
She called me, to be exact, it was I think it was the 12th, because I have a text message that I had sent her right after that conversation. And she was...
March 12th?
Yeah, just this last March. And she was upset about things that had went on, and she was on a limited amount of time because Brian was out paddleboarding, and
So she's already reporting stuff to her friend of things not going well. She's having to hide her phone call so she can have a private moment to try and tell her friend what's going on.
Sent me a message saying he's out paddleboarding, so I knew I had to call. Excuse me. That's a lot of times how I would know I needed to call, because, she needs to talk now because she's alone. And I knew there was like no privacy, and she couldn't really just call me. She couldn't just jump in the car and go to the store and make a quick call. So in any case, she had called me and she had told me about some things that had happened. I think they were in Florida, and it was something to do with their grandson telling them something in confidence, and Brian wanting to keep the secret, and Lynette.
Oh, I know. Me too. I watched it earlier today. When I got to this part, it was just heartbreaking. And the one with her mother, it was just a little short that I saw, and her mother was talking about how many instances there were of him putting his hands around her throat. And it's just sad, because there were so many times when she could have gotten away. But as we've talked about same with like this whole Magnolia situation, women get embarrassed. Men and women, you get embarrassed you start to blame yourself. You think your brain isn't thinking right when you're in a situation like that. And it's just, again, something that didn't have to happen. And unfortunately, this woman has probably lost her life as the end of her story, instead of being able to get away.
I thought the grandson's mother should know. And she said she told the mother, and it was a big to do. I mean, to give you exact details, I know I was working while I was listening to that conversation. And I was like, what are you talking? And she said, yeah, well, we had been drinking a little bit lately. And I said, no, that's, no. She said, I know, we're quitting.
And that's something that her daughter had said, that very early on, was that they had started drinking again, and that their relationship was always a lot rougher. It didn't work when they were both drinking. And so it's being reported that they were drinking more again and getting back into that habit, and things were getting worse and worse.
Again, we just can't drink. We just can't do that. And, things get really bad when we drink. And I said, I don't think it matters either way. But in any case, she said things are bad, really bad, and I need your advice. I said, well, Lynette, what do you want? What do you need advice on? And she said, I'm 10 minutes from the airport. I said, get on the plane. And then
She was on her way to the plane,
said,
and she called.
And so there, she's already kind of crying out for help, right? But for whatever reason, she stayed.
Minutes from the airport. That's what she said. That's what she said. We always,
You know what? That makes sense.
code.
Honestly,
And I
I'll
said,
tell you what, where that boat.
Hi there, little Miss Chi-Town. Good to see you, girl. Thank you very, very much. That's kind of you. This girl, I'm telling you, I don't know if you've been following this case, but it's very, very similar to Magnolia's story. And unfortunately, this lady has most likely lost her life because of it. Yeah. Exactly, Emily. Yeah. Now that's getting, I don't know if Truth is still in here, or if she's back. She might be back at the beginning. I think isn't that getting ready to start trial too? Or go back to court? If I'm thinking of the right one. Yeah, it is. These two people are from Michigan, where I live. They actually live about an hour and a half away from me. She went missing one night. They were coming back from an inn that they had been having some cocktails at on their dinghy back to their sailing boat. And supposedly she bounced out of the boat, was washed away, and he never found her. And through all these series of unfortunate events, he ended up 9 hours later in a spot across the little sea of Abaco, on a trip that Coast Guard has said would probably take him about half an hour to float where he ended up. So, but there's a history of DV, and there's a history of CA, and there's also now accounts from the mother and this friend of him having an issue with putting his hands around her throat every time they get in an argument. And at one time, according to the mother, squeezed her throat so hard that she felt something pop in her neck, and she was injured for weeks afterwards. So I again want to reiterate, when it comes to Magnolia, bravo, girl. This was not easy to do, and you got away alive, and that's what's important.
Was moored.
Mhm.
All she needed to do was get to the dock, and it is about a 10-15 minute taxi.
Right. And I also knew that. But in my mind, it was I'm going to say I didn't know that until after the fact. But I had said, well, get on the plane. That's my advice. Get on the plane. If things are that bad, if they're getting the way they were, you get on the plane. And in any case, she didn't. The next day, she texted me a picture of her dinner and said he made dinner. And I was very upset and did not text her back because I was like, well, if things get as bad as they were 2 years ago, you're going to be sorry. And unfortunately, that's the
Just probably trying to pretend like everything's all right.
information that I had sent you. The
So
pictures.
what happened 2 years ago? And maybe describe for me, you've mentioned things were bad, but I'm not really clear on what she said to you about everything.
Extremely. Especially when she said that he had threatened to K her and that she believed that he would. That's a pretty big statement to make. And I believe her.
All the way along, how things were bad and what.
And we see this whole story was a gradual over 25 years, an escalation in DV with his wife, his children, court documented, charges were brought. This friend talks about it, that he didn't just go to court, get a ticket and go home. He had to deal with it for quite a while. It sounds like probably, offender classes, things like that, court appointed whatevers.
Way. What was the relationship with Brian like, and all the times that she confided in you? What were the things she said and told you about?
The violence. 2 years ago, they'd gotten into a big fight when they were drinking, and he choked her, and he had her pinned against the seat, and he bruised her back really bad when he did that. And the next day told her, and she had called me, and I remember talking to her when she was still there. She was still on the boat, and very upset. And she said, he told me that he wished he would have finished the job and thrown me overboard. No one would have ever found me.
I want to listen to that again.
When she was still there, she was still on the boat, and very upset. And she said, he told me that he wished he would have finished the job and thrown me overboard. No one would have ever found me.
And coincidentally, she fell overboard and no one's found her. Man, this guy has got super bad luck, right? Man.
Did she text it, or did she call you
She
and say
called
that?
me and said that. She called me and said that. She did not text. She barely texted any of this stuff because she was so private. And in a way, it's hurt her, at this point, because she didn't. She kept things and she would always say to me,
I wonder also if, excuse me, sorry. I'm still getting over that schmutz. I also wonder if he read her text messages. A lot of times the aggressor is very controlling like that and will, keep tabs on those kinds of things to make sure that you're not telling people.
when she was on the verge of leaving, I'm so embarrassed. And that, I think, is why she kept things so under wraps, because she was so embarrassed by thinking that she had failed in some way.
And that's it. That right there. That is a huge reason why so many people don't tell. And like I say all through this whole thing, this happens to men and women both. More so women, I believe. But that's the big thing. I think whether you're a man or you're a woman, though, that embarrassment thing. And it sounds so silly, but you are embarrassed because you are thinking, what did I do? What did I do to make this happen? Or embarrassed that you feel like you allowed it to happen to yourself. Because a lot of people ask that, right? We've seen that again with the Magnolia situation. Why did she let it go this far? Why did she let this happen this long? Like, this is why. and you're humiliated, you know. I think she was probably, and probably it sounds like she did speak out to people, and maybe that was part of the embarrassment too, having to admit to them and herself that she had given in again, and that the people that loved her kept telling her, get away, this is dangerous, the only way you're ever going to be safe is to get away from him. And look what happened.
This is embarrassing.
Did she call you about other times and describe other instances of violence?
There was the time when she ended up having to go to jail. That time she called me after that. She told me about what happened then, and she said that she was defending herself. I remember it was because of a locked door, something to do with her daughter and his older son, a locked door. And
I believe he talked about that incident and said that he asked police not to take her. They were both intoxicated when it happened. But I'd often wondered, was she trying to protect the kids?
Something happened in that regard. I don't remember the story.
Or herself.
Exactly, unfortunately. And it was a phone conversation. And then there was another incident she had called me about.
Well, just to clear up that last incident, she was arrested because he had, the version that I have seen and been told about from sources was that she was arrested because he had blood in his nose, but she had marks that came out later, and they never charged or prosecuted.
So marks, because you don't bruise right away, right? And so she went to jail, which, again, at least she was safe that night. Hopefully the kids were safe that night. But that happens often. They turn it around. So it seems like she was the one, or the victim is the one out of control. Well, that's it. It's almost 9 hours that he had. Just to, wander around in, like, what she referred to earlier. Like, they're literally like in a swimming pool, in a bathtub. It wasn't that deep. This one was a diver. She was a swimmer. She lived on a sailing vessel for 2 years. She was a seasoned sailor. There's none of what he has said makes sense. Like, none of it. Yeah. And that happens. They flip it around.
This case at all against her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She dropped it. They dropped it. It was a drinking fueled fight. And she had said, it's the alcohol. She would tell me that before. And as far as I knew, they were not drinking at all, like the month of March, like after, because she had said that as long as we don't drink, we're fine.
What was the next episode that you were about to mention before I jumped in?
Sorry.
That she told you about?
So that's what I'm wondering too. Did something happen in March that made them start drinking again?
She had told me about him getting into it with his oldest daughter, Jessica. Something happening.
Now, this is the one that I believe he was charged in with CA.
And I don't remember what that was centered around at all. I just remember that he had to go to court for that a lot. And she was very stressed about it. And at the time, she supported him and she kept a lot of that under wraps. But I didn't find out about that, like the actual physical acts that happened until he did it until 2 years ago. So when
and it's a long time ago. This is the incident that went to before a jury. The jury acquitted him, but there was an allegation that he had choked out his 12-year-old daughter, correct?
Yes.
2 years ago is not that long ago. 2 years ago is about the time that they sold everything and decided to go sailing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she kept that under wraps and you only found out about it a couple years ago?
Right. When she got choked. I remember her calling me, though, during the court proceedings in 2015. But I don't remember her telling me whether it was abuse during that time or not. I honestly, but I do. And then but I do remember her telling me about it after he had done it to her, after he had choked her. I said.
And tell me a little bit more about the incidents on the sailboat.
Oh, I thought it was 2. Oh, no. 2 years. I'm sorry. I'm getting confused. He said he hadn't been docked in 2 years. That's right. That was his flex.
because I think you mentioned to me off camera that she would usually text you, "Are you up?"
Yes.
And that was often a code for I want to talk on the phone.
Yeah, I can
What were some
talk.
of the instances on the sailboat that she confided in you about?
Just the drinking and the fighting. And she'd say it would just get vicious and he would be very, very mean.
Physical?
Yeah, she would sometimes take the blame. She would say, well, I would like poke the bear. I push the argument.
See, that happens a lot. They start to blame themselves. Yep. Not in a marina. I'm constantly on the move. Yeah, this guy. Sounds terrifying.
I fight back is what she would tell me. And I would say,
And I said that the other night. She's a Michigan woman. She's tough. She's grown up on the water, the woods, all that. And fighting back is just gonna, not that she shouldn't. She should just leave. That's the best thing. But fighting back is just gonna make him angrier.
I think your best way to fight back would be to leave.
But did she talk to you about him being physically abusive with her on the boat?
Yeah.
What would she say?
Definitely told me about the choking, and they would like throw things at each
Exactly, truth. Exactly.
other, stuff like that. I mean, the only one that sticks in my mind very clearly was the choking. That was it. And
describe what she said about that.
she said he choked her to the point to where she thought she was going to black out. Get off there. You're going to chew through that cord.
I mean, this is on the boat. She needed to trust her gut, but I know how hard it is to leave. She felt she didn't have anything to go to if she left. I bet. No home. Exactly. Now, I saw someone speaking earlier today, and I don't know, I didn't have time to look or anything like that, but something about that they had quite a decent amount of money saved back. And so that was the wonder too. Was that part of this? Because again, Michigan is a no-fault state in divorce and in car insurance. And so basically what it is you kind of take care of it yourself. Whatever is yours and in your name, you take. Anything that is community property between the two of you is split 50-50. So if the money was in her name, say that was her retirement or whatever, and they divorced, she would get to keep it. If it was just something in a savings account or something with both their names on it, they'd have to split it. And if she were to pass away, and he would be able to take that money. So that's kind of what I wonder. I'd say his mother is safe. He's going to say his goodbyes because he knows it's going to catch up to him. He knows he's toast. They're letting him dig his hole deeper. That's kind of what I wonder. If he went to go say goodbye to his mom, but also you weren't here earlier in the interview. Ashley Banfield said that she had some, you know how she's always got the source, that said that he's not staying with mom out in California. He's staying with someone else. So, was there someone, on the side? Because they did have a big social media presence. They had their YouTube channel where they sailed around and all of that, and I just wonder. She never said who, but she said that she has intel that he's not staying with mom. So not real worried about mom. Oh, I still have to send you that link for that. What is it? The Wi-Fi thing. Wi-Fi booster. Yeah, it was right at the beginning. She never said, but um, if he was, I mean, we know, we've seen it happen to some of these, especially the men on these platforms, on all social media platforms, that there are women that love to get their attention, right? And it's real easy to fall into that. And if they were already having issues, maybe he'd met somebody. Maybe this was planned because he knew. Now she talked about getting a plane ticket like on the 11th and talking about I'm less than 10 miles away from the airport. I mean, did he do this so that he didn't have to, so he could have his money, get his new little friend, and sail the seven seas for the rest of his life? He'd have nothing to hold him back, right?
She said, he choked me to the point to where I felt like I was about to black out. And then he released me. And the next day said, I wish I would have finished the job and thrown you overboard. And I said, you have to leave right now. Right now. She left, went to her mother's for about two and a half.
But no, Ashley Banfield said that she alluded to, he's staying with a woman in California. It was at the very beginning. She said she got word that he's not staying with mom. He's staying with someone else. So he's out there with somebody, and he's from Grand Rapids. So,
half months, somewhere in there. During that time, she was job hunting, but he was continually trying to get her back. I do have a text message that he had sent to her. I'd have to dig for it, but I could find it, that she had sent me.
But I do agree, though, about the she's mine and no one else's, because I do think that he is the type of guy that probably, even if he was interested in someone else, would be angry if the same thing were going on the other side. But there hasn't been like any evidence of that so far that we've seen on either side. But I just wonder who he is staying with out there. That's going to tell a lot. And the fact that he just ran all of a sudden. If his lawyer's out of Grand Rapids, that means he is planning to come back at some point. But that's something, yeah. And that's the biggest thing that I agree. I really like, he is a true narcissist. And when he's speaking, when he's doing these interviews, he keeps saying, she belongs with me. We belong together. I've lost my wife. I'm this, my that. He's not speaking about like, oh my gosh, where is she? I hope she's okay. I hope we find her. I hope, maybe she's just on an island somewhere and she's okay and she's waiting for us to come find her. That to me would be the level of grief that he switches on all of a sudden with his tears doesn't match then how he reacts and acts. And, well, okay, Truth, hear me out on this one with the whole MS. Part of me wonders when he, quote unquote, fell off the boat when they were putting him into the police boat to take him back and to put him in jail. Was it an accident that he fell? Because, was he, extremely intoxicated and did this in that state and then in the morning sobered up and thought, oh, or who was it the other night that said that, was it Canvas, I think, that said that people that are intoxicated a lot of times when something big happens, stressful happens, you sober up pretty quickly. Did he all of a sudden realize what he did? And that's what he was trying to figure out, how to hide it all night. And that's it too. Was he trying to hide evidence? Hopefully they do find her, because if she has some kind of wound, like from, a pew pew or a pokey pokey, then we're going to know a shark isn't, sharks don't conceal carry, right? And that's true. Most don't, because it's all about them. And that person made them do it, right?
A screenshot of that he had sent to her when they had split up about Rosie wanting to see her, and she clearly asked him to. She said, "I do."
His daughter Rosie.
Yeah.
He was saying,
After
"My daughter
the
Rosie
split,
wants to see
Rosie
you."
still wants to, talk with you, and still, wants to be close with you. She really loves you, and it's a very long text. And then she said, "I love Rosie very much too, but I also think this is a clear manipulation of my."
I was just going to say manipulation. Using the kids is manipulation. I don't, it just popped into my head. This is what we're working with, okay? Like, and that's it. Yeah, was it? Like, I don't trust anything he says. Nothing.
My feelings, stop it. And I mean, and he did this throughout the time she was with her mother, and would invite her down and come have a date with me, and love bomb, basically.
Oh, that's a big red flag, the love bombing afterwards. And, isn't it funny too? Right before a holiday, right? And then he goes out to California. Ashley's got inside information that he's not staying with his mom, but she's kind of alluding to it's probably a woman that he's staying with. And I wonder if this woman knows anything about this. It's got all these little similarities to different cases, like Scott Peterson. Remember? He was at one of the searches for his wife, or a candlelight vigil for his wife. He was pretending that he was at like New Year's Eve in another country. Hi, Jean. Ginate. They drank at that Tahiti island earlier in the day. They were out in front of that Firefly Inn. They pulled up anchor in the sailboat at about 11, and then they went down to where they moored up and went to Tahiti Beach, where it was the barge bar. It was out in the middle of the water. And the daughter said when she was in the boat, there was a 12-pack, I think, with like 4 beers missing. So, we talked about those having roadies, from Tahiti Island. Did they stop at the boat on their way back, or did they just keep going and go to the Abaco Inn, where they had their last 2 drinks each, rum and cokes? So
she would tell you this, or she texted it to you?
She told me. She'd tell me. I did have the one text though.
Is that when?
And we didn't hear about them eating any food either. So that's something else. That's a lot of drinking on empty stomachs. I mean, maybe they had food in the cooler, snacks, sandwiches, I don't know. But I thought about that too. Maybe they were going to be drinking. Well, see, that's it. Whew, I'm so sorry. I gotta take some more of my sinus stuff. It's warmed up. It was like 80 something today. And I've been sneezing ever since. I got those cough pearls, so I'm gonna take one of those before I go to bed. But yeah, no food that we saw. They were just having drinks. We've got them sitting by the pool. Hers was sitting there with her arms crossed. He's facing her kind of with his head down. Are they having a discussion? Because this is sounding like we're at a crossroads again. where she's thinking about leaving, right? Because it's gotten so violent. And she hasn't left yet. She's still found a reason to stay, or didn't have a way to get away when he wasn't watching.
Is that when she photographed bruises on her back and said, I'm taking these pictures, so I remember?
Yes, and she had sent it to me. And I was like, what the? And I just don't erase anything. And I have that text message. I knew I had that. But I was like, good. I'm glad that you aren't going to go back. Well, unfortunately, she did. And I was in Florida, and we had met for dinner. There's a picture of us on my Facebook that is her and I. That was the last time we had been together, just her and I. And it was the day before she went back to him after that incident.
And that's sad because she got away. Like, that's the sad thing about a lot of these stories, is when you watch them and you see those key moments when if somebody had just made in that split second a different decision, that some of these tragedies can be prevented in people's lives. It's sad.
And we had I remember we were at, what is it called? Catfish Johnny's in Florida. And we had dinner together. I was down there for work and she was there with her mom, and her mom is like 20 minutes from my work when I'm in Florida. And she said she was going to go back, and she said, what do you think? And I said, Lynette, if anything ever happens to you to where you can't speak for yourself, you come up missing, anything happens to you, I am going to point the finger at Brian.
Okay, now wait till you hear what he says.
Because of this. And I do not think you should go back. But if that is what is going to make you happy, I support you in your decision to try again. And, I'm sure there were several more incidents that we know nothing about, because, again, she was so private. So private. I know that even from living with her. She was so private. She confided in like nobody. And I didn't tell anybody because she trusted me. Other than her mother and I talked a little bit, but I would even keep a lot from her mom just because this is my friend and I wouldn't want her, the same thing to.
And again, she talked about being embarrassed, right? Just embarrassed. She didn't want anybody to know.
But immediately when her mother called me and told me what had happened, unfortunately, my mind went right to 2 years ago. And when I told her that, and the next day I had called her when I was back in Michigan, because that was my last night in Florida. I flew home to Michigan, and my boyfriend had another accident while I was gone, or when I got home, and I was on the phone with her. And she said, by the way, I told Brian what you said about you're going to point at him if something happens to me. And he said, that's fair.
That's fair. I mean, I feel bad for this friend, though. Even though she did everything she could to help her. I feel like she feels guilty still, and that's just sad. And that's the thing. He's not just hurting Lynette, her kids, her friends, her family. He's just, ugh.
She told you that's fair.
He said that's fair. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And again, you said to your friend Lynette, if something happens to you and you turn up missing, I'm going to point the finger at Brian.
If you turn up missing or anything happens to you to where you can't speak for yourself, I'm going to point the finger at your husband, at Brian. And she told him I said that, and he said that's fair. And I'll never forget it because it sent chills down my spine.
Yeah, he's pretty much saying, yeah, you'd probably be right. What a thing to say.
And that was 2 years ago, and I was like, yeah.
What are your thoughts about Brian's newest lawyer, who has apparently been retained in Michigan, saying Brian has never hurt Lynette?
I have proof otherwise. I have the pictures, and I did give all of that to the U.S. Coast Guard too.
So, this lady, yeah, she has her heart's broken, and to have to carry that around, that she told her and she tried to get her away, and her family too, and for whatever reason he just had that hold on her.
Yeah. So yeah, and I know otherwise. I know he choked her that time, almost to the point of passing out, which to me is almost killing her.
As far as instances of abuse, you've mentioned the one.
Exactly. And I just wondered, did that happen on the dinghy? Did that happen on the boat? And I thought about it. There probably would be ways for him to put her over the side to get her out of there in the middle of the night. I mean, he had till 4 a.m.
Where you say she told you that he choked her to the point of near passing out. It caused bruises that she photographed
on her back.
Were there other instances? Were there other instances that she described to you, either by text or by phone?
I mean, yeah, maybe he just went too far this time. It only takes once, right? It only takes once. It takes a second for this to turn into what it has.
Not that she described to me by text or by phone. This last March, all she said to me was, "It's getting really bad, and I'm 10 minutes from the airport." And I said, "Get on the plane. If it's as bad as you're saying, if it's as bad as I think it is, get on the plane." And that was the end of our conversation because I was working and I had to go and I couldn't be on the phone anymore. And
she had a ticket. She bought a ticket March 11th, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm told. I didn't know that though.
Yeah, March 11th. So she actually bought a ticket. She wasn't just talking this time. She actually bought a ticket to go home again and be done. Or at least away and safe for a while. Yeah, that happened to me, and I think that's part of the whole cycle, the whole relationship, is that you do get pulled away from friends and people that you could cry out to because you don't want to explain. You don't want to have to keep having to tell people. You don't want to have to keep explaining why you're there, why it's happening. Yeah, thank goodness she had someone.
Till after she went missing. But it told me that, yeah, there was definitely some.
And now hopefully the information that she has will be used to charge this guy, because
thing going on that none of us knew about that she was keeping private. That there was definitely.
And
if she
you were
was
about to say you
afraid
fully
enough to leave
expected.
again, there's got to be something going on. What's that? I'm sorry.
You were just about to say that you fully expected. Can you finish that?
I fully expected to hear from her and have her tell me she was in Miami or with her mother the next day, or in Michigan here at the house by herself the next day. I fully expected that. And when I found out she went back, I was like, why? I mean, it's just a sense, you know?
Exactly. And that in itself is embarrassing too. Yeah, and it is. It's so sad. It's so sad.
I mean, I can't say that I immediately called her up and said, "What are you doing, you fool? I know there's more going on than what you are telling me," because I just knew it. And I knew nothing that I said was going to change that, because she was determined that relationship was going to be fine as long as they didn't drink. And she had been telling me the remainder of the month. We talked quite a few more times throughout the rest of the month of March, and not really.
And we don't know if they drank when they got up that morning on the boat either. It sounds like they were very heavy drinkers when they drank. And they were at this Tahiti beach all afternoon. And I mean, if you are someone who drinks that much, then sometimes you have to drink in the morning. I mean, this could have just been a state of just constant, you know, and at least for that day.
By text as much as by phone. We would rather speak to each other. And she had told me that they were not drinking, and they had even stopped smoking weed. And yeah, she was happy about that. She liked that. And then when I found out what happened and that they had been drinking, I was like, what? No, I thought she said, you know, and this was like through 2-3 weeks ago, that they were not drinking anymore. I don't understand. But yeah, I really do think that she just thought that as long as they didn't drink and like they had no substances at all whatsoever, that things would just be great.
Rachel, I'm so sorry this is happening.
And then for whatever reason, they started drinking again. Was it, you know, I mean, that's the thing. You don't have to, you can be an alcoholic and not drink every single day. My dad was an addiction therapist, and which is part of the reason why I'm so messed up. But my parents were a teacher and a therapist. I mean, wow, you know, Freud would have a field day with that one. But you know, you may go through a week of sobriety and then go to the bar or whatever and get completely smashed, and you're right back into that behavior, and you're right back into that pit, you know, that you're in. And that's what I wonder too, if that was part of it. And that's why I started drinking again, because that may be out in, well, I don't know about the Bahamas, maybe not. But I know I'm thinking of Jamaica. So is it easy to get out there? Is it not? Is it legal out there? Is it not? You know?
Happened to your friend, and I'm so sorry that
I wish I
you
had
and her family
more.
are going through
I
this.
wish she would have texted me more than called me. I just, like, I say to her, like, wherever you are, I just want to slap you for not giving me more to give them, because
Well, and that's it. She was trying with everything in her to make this work with her. Well, and that's, you know, because think about it, like it probably could have been just such a beautiful life if it weren't for that. And when they were sober, maybe she saw little glimpses of the person that she wanted him to be or hoped that he would be for her all of the time, but he just wasn't, he wasn't that person. And this sadly was the result.
unfortunately, I just don't remember details as well as I should.
No, it's okay. But I'm just, I
But my
appreciate that you
immediate
tell.
gut said, why were they drinking again? I just, yeah.
I'm sorry you got.
Well, and that's what I wonder, if something happened and they were both like, screw it. Was he seeing somebody or talking to somebody, at least? Not seeing someone because they're together on the water all the time, but and that's it. Yeah. What was he saying? What did he say that last time? What did he use to manipulate her?
You guys are all going through this, and I just want to say thank you very much for sharing these stories with me.
You're welcome.
So yeah, so that is that interview. I wanted to go over that because I was just flabbergasted at the stuff that has come out that is completely the opposite of what he said. And I think it's on her. I'm trying to think of which video of hers it's on, but she shows a map of, there was a map in this one, but she shows a map and it's showing how this area, there's just no way. If she were to literally be into an area where she either drowned or was carried away, I would say it would be because she was incapacitated. Because we saw that picture of her. She's got strong swimmer legs. She doesn't have, she's what, 55, I think. She's physically fit. You know, again, she's a good swimmer. They've been on the water for 2 years. She's not a newbie. Just all of the things that are coming together are not making sense. And oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, thanks for sitting here and talking to me about it. Like I said, I'm always driver was actually home tonight. His last load got canceled, so he was hanging out with me for a little bit tonight. But he's not always around to follow all this. So I needed to talk with you guys about it because I was like, and if all of this stuff is coming out, I'm just wondering what in the world is going to be coming out, because he's not doing a good job. He's not doing a good job at telling the story. He's not doing a good job at covering his tracks. I really, really hope this whole Apple Watch thing comes into play and really helps them find. Like, remember, who was it? Alec Murdaugh and the iPhone that tracked them all that night. So everywhere where they were, him going slow, him speeding, him doing, I mean, so hopefully the technology starts screaming, you know, on this one. And because she did not just boop out of that dinghy. There's no way. And that's it. Now where is she? And I mean, there's There's two things because she's not anywhere. The Coast Guard has done grid searches. That was something which I'm wondering if, and I can't remember who I saw announce this today, but they were talking about cadaver dogs. So, I mean, because at this point, she was missing the Saturday before Easter at this point. I mean, who knows? Maybe she's off on some deserted island. Maybe she ran away and never to be found again. Wouldn't that be great? But that's probably not what happened. And so she's not in that Abacus Sea. She's either buried in the land somewhere, because I keep thinking about all of the stories of how he hurt her. And it doesn't take that long to cut someone's airway off, right? She was sitting at the pool with her arms crossed. Were they in a little bit of an argument that escalated? And they walked back to go to the bathroom, or to maybe walk along that lane so that they weren't fighting with each other in front of everyone. And he got mad and went a little too far, and then went walking back to the dinghy and took off. And floated around because he had to figure out, was it her? Okay. I couldn't remember. I'm doing it again. I'm watching so much stuff, and I wasn't able to take notes today. So, but yeah, it's just, it's wild that I never understand when people are dishonest about things that are absolutely, completely provable. Like, is he really that unintelligent that they didn't think that anybody would get away with some of these stories and the constant story change? But that shows somebody that's lying. Keep thinking of details to add to the story. It gets bigger, it gets broader, it gets longer, because you know what, if I add this in, that'll be more believable. Let me put this in, so that's a little bit more believable. And that, I thought it was like, was it in that marina area? Because see, he didn't land in the marina. He landed down the beach a little bit. So is she over there somewhere, or did something happen before they even left that inn, and she's back behind there and I mean, it was the vegetation was really, really dense around there. So you could even just dump somebody and not really be able to see. Okay. So down by that inn then. Because I believe that little trail that where he's shown walking down that little kind of road down to the dock, behind him, it goes alongside of that inn, and it goes up into where some of those houses that are under construction are. It's like a subdivision. And remember, that's one of the things that he said, and it's like that behind the marina too. But that's one of the things that he said to the Coast Guard was something about, there's subdivisions back there, aren't there? When he was asking about, did they find the green dry bag? Yeah. And they did several grid searches, they said, of that entire area. And that they even went out onto that end point by that Matthew Key, where if she had even gone and floated that far, she wouldn't have been washed out completely to the Atlantic Ocean. She would have washed out a little bit, but then brought back in to one of those either eastern or western tips of the land masses that come out right there in the little beaches, because it's, again, shallow, like sandbar. And yeah, exactly, it's not that deep. So there's literally, he would have to either, and again, I keep thinking about what the conditions that he's describing were the conditions of the Atlantic that night. We've said that the past week. Every night we talk about that. Like, no, the Atlantic was like 2 to 4 feet and strong winds. Well, but see, I'm wondering too. Remember, he said he didn't know anything about, let me see. He said he didn't know anything about the tide, blah, blah, blah. But then when he was talking to the Coast Guard, he was talking about ebb tides and flood tides. And let's see. So he obviously does know about the tides. And I'm just wondering what the conditions are out at that far end by that outlet during either high or low tide. If he could have gotten out there, at least far enough to get her pulled out to sea, or I can't, and this was like 2 or 3 days ago, they were showing there's a little bit of an area as you're going out to the Atlantic Ocean where there is some shallower spots and some kind of and I just wonder, have they looked on, I mean, you would think that they have, but have they looked over on that side? Yeah, where the boat was deeper, and that's why they could only pull in so far, and they hooked to the mooring, and then they were using the dinghy to get around all these little bars and restaurants because it was so shallow in that area that she supposedly fell out of the boat, was bounced out of the boat by 2 to 4 foot waves. Exactly. But calm where the boat was. And they show, like I said, we saw that video. We've all seen it, of the conditions that were just relatively calm with a beautiful sun that night. There's no way that he couldn't have seen her. And then you saw the demonstration with the dry bag. There's no way that he couldn't have gotten to her, or that she couldn't have gotten back to the boat in that kind of water. She could have literally swam and just stood up and waited for him to get back over there and given him the key back, right? Yeah. And I wonder why they tied up in front of, why they anchored in front of Firefly Inn. And I wonder why they didn't just go straight in, if there was a reason for that too, and didn't come off the boat at all. So this could have started that night. Maybe they anchored there because they had planned on going there, and there was an argument or something happened that night, and this was a continuation. They woke up the next day, said, let's go, shake it off or whatever. But as the day went on, and as they drank more and more and more, that argument or discussion or whatever it was just kept getting fueled up until he either did something to her on the island, did something to her on the dinghy, or did something to her on the sailboat. Well, that's the thing. They weren't seen on surveillance camera going to the Firefly. They weren't seen leaving or coming back in with the dinghy, because the surveillance camera from the Firefly points right out on their boat where it was anchored, and there was no credit card receipts, and so I don't believe, it sounds like they anchored up around 1:30 on Friday, and they stayed on the boat until around 11 o'clock the next morning. They stayed overnight and then left to go to where they tied up. Maybe that mooring wasn't available until that next day. I'm not sure. But they went and tied up, and that's where they tied up. And then that's when, because that was the other thing, according to the surveillance footage, the dinghy stayed on the boat the whole time. Yeah, but not in the beach area, not in that whole little, it really looks like a giant sandbar, I mean, so you really could only navigate through that area with like a little dinghy, because anything else, it would just be too shallow. There's absolutely no way. And like it's been discussed, it's a keel ship. It has that big like blade that goes underneath it. So even though you see only so much sticking up out of the water, there's quite a bit more that's underneath the water level that's keeping it, steering and staying course. But like they said, especially probably in the shallower areas, if she was attacked by a shark, there would probably be evidence left of it. Yeah, and that's the thing too. The tide should have brought in, if it brought in the floating cushion, it should have brought in her. It should have brought in some clothes. It should have brought in the dry bag, something. It just, none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. What he said happened didn't happen. It couldn't happen. And yeah, and that would be how that is near that Matthew Key, and up on the other end, because you've got the sea and the ocean coming in together. But I don't know. I hope that that's what I think too. That's why he wants to know, because maybe he just got mad and went poop, 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 threw everything out the boat. I think he still had power on that boat all night, though. And I wonder, did he throw out that bag, maybe semi-close to the shore, and that cushion, because he wanted them to land there, right? And maybe the bag didn't make it, I don't know. But or did he forget what he did with the bag? Did the bag go over with her? Because I don't think it really did. If it's sitting on the floor of the boat and she's falling backwards, let's say she's grabbing for dear life and she gets that string of that key and she pulls it out. Okay, fine, whatever. With the dry bag, no. And well, there wasn't a lanyard on it. That's in the picture it shows, it's just like a string that was tied to it. So it didn't have that lanyard cord. It didn't have the wristlet. It didn't have any of that. It was just like a shoelace or something that was like tied to it. And so I can't even see her being able to really grab it or think about grabbing it, because I don't know. No, I don't think she did either. I think he had power. Because he ends up on that other island, near that other island. That's where he finally throws a flare. What was it? About 2,000 yards away. And then goes back the other way across. And that's in his little 9-hour. What was he doing over there? Because that was something else too that he talked about, is that one island. And that being that it was Easter weekend, that there wouldn't be many people over there. It's almost like like he's giving us his thought process. And could he have gone over there in the middle of the night, dumped her, and then hit the flare and floated back over, because that was going to be his original story. That's where, or that he tried looking for her and he was that close or something like that. And that's when he did the flare, or I don't know. Yeah. So it'd be her phone, the key, both their passports, and probably a wallet or something that was in there, I would think. Yeah. I don't see how, just the force alone, the momentum, how she could have grabbed it, because she would have been having that backward momentum. She wouldn't have been able to grab. She would have been like flipping over, like when a diver flips over the side of a boat. You're going to tip back and your head's going to go back. Your arms are going to go back. You're going to try and catch yourself, but you're not going to grab a bag and a string and a key and again, throw the anchor out, grab the rope if it's a little bit rough, and grab your wife. But it wasn't rough. It was something that if she had just flipped out of the back of the boat and she wasn't injured, because he didn't report any injury, that she could have easily swam right back to the boat, walked back to the boat in some areas. Well, and that's what I wonder about when he's talking about that. He's talking about some of those different islands. Is that him kind of reiterating what he was thinking out loud that night or days prior or whatever, or when he was out there? He's already said to her, I should have finished the job and threw you overboard. This is something that's obviously in his brain already, and well, and I was really surprised at how dense, like when we were talking like Nancy Guthrie, and they were talking about the dense scrub and stuff. When I looked at that didn't look that dense to me. I mean, no, I'm not on the ground, walking around through it. But this, like, you literally cannot see dirt or anything in between any of this brush. And that's in these subdivisions that's been cleared out. So I'm thinking on some of these islands that are just like a beach island, and some of them are just like sandbars even. And that's it. He's telling everything that they need to know. And that's, again, why I think they're waiting, because they're just letting him, take enough rope, just keep talking. And eventually it will come out what he did. I mean, I hope for her family's sake, and I hope for her friend's sake, that they do find her and that the real truth comes out. I'm really trying to have positive thoughts about this Apple Watch thing, because, and it was waterproof, obviously, because she was using it on dives and stuff like that. If he didn't think about that, maybe he's one of those guys that didn't even notice that she wasn't wearing the new one, and that she had the old one still. Didn't even think about it when this happened, because, again, inebriated, really, they had been drinking quite a lot that day, it sounds like, at this other Tahiti Beach place, then moving on to the inn. So, yeah, this is going to be, yes, yeah, that Lubbers Island, yes. And that was mentioned quite early on, that they thought that if she had made it really far, that she could have possibly got to that out by the boat, but that they didn't think that was possible because, again, of the conditions. And that's it. And all that time, 9 hours to go around, when, a lot of people were probably sleeping or not really paying attention. I mean, and it's the boat life, Hi, just reporting. Good to see you. It's the boat life. So it is a chill life. It is, no boundaries. And so maybe people weren't paying attention, or it's like when you live in an apartment building and people get in fights. Like everybody kind of, if you got that one like couple that's always fighting each other, everybody kind of just ignores it and everything. And maybe there was nothing that was outright that anybody could pinpoint was DV, but maybe they were used to some yelling, some everybody's had a couple cocktails and we're yelling or we're making a bunch of noise in the middle of the night, and they just didn't think anything of it. And yeah, could he have just rolled her right over the side where they were moored at? And if she was injured, that's what I'm thinking. And I still come back to, I think he had the power of that motor. I think that key got thrown out somewhere close to that marina, because 9 hours, and that's what they said. What did they say? It was like a 20-30 minute float from where it supposedly happened to him getting over to that other marina, according to the currents and the tides. Something that he doesn't know anything about, but now he knows a lot about. So, yeah. I hope they find her soon, and hopefully he doesn't take off anywhere. And I want to know I want to know who he's staying with. That's going to be interesting too, out in California. So, all right. On that note, it is 11:55 my time, and I've still got a couple loads of laundry I got to throw in. But, yeah, keep watching. We're going to keep updated on this. And all the rest of the stuff going on. Tomorrow night, it will probably be a little bit later when I get on. This weekend, it's Friday night. I'm not positive if I'll be able to, but I should be able to a little bit later on. So we'll go over any more updates on this Lynette Hooker case and Brian Hooker. Still trying to see. I've still got I've got one eyeball on. All right, cool. Thanks, Truth. I got one eyeball on Nancy Guthrie. I've got my other eyeball on the Ramon Preciado, who I need to check on that too and just make sure that he hasn't pulled anything and tried to get any more continuances or anything like that. He's the father that helped his son conceal the unaliving of Matthew Guerra and pregnant Savannah Soto. She was 9 months pregnant. She was overdue, actually. And when they didn't show up to the hospital, be induced the day after Christmas, there was a huge manhunt for them, and unfortunately they found them no longer with us at the hands of Christopher Preciado, who was just convicted to life in prison, but basically because he wanted some car parts and rugs that Matthew had that he was selling, and like $600. So both the parents and this baby were gone because this little selfish fool. So yeah, no. 9 hours, no, it doesn't. And what happened to the other oar? Those oars float when you lose them. They float. So where's the oar? I would presume, I would expect that everything end up in about the same general vicinity, right? Maybe at different times because of weight, etc. But, and that's the thing. That's why I think there's way more going on from that the Abaco Inn? Because if not, why would the police tell them that they're not allowed to release the security footage? Well, they had Starlink on the boat too. They had Starlink, so Starlink would record. Should be able to track it through that. Except the phones, the watches. Oh, that happens to me all the time. Truth, don't worry. Oh, I absolutely think so. Just reporting. I absolutely think that this is a false story to cover his tracks. I don't know if he planned it ahead of time. It sounds like he's just kind of a he's a narcissist and he's violent, and that's what I wonder. Is the or with her, or yeah, if it has DNA on it, because he helped her overboard, then maybe he did something with that too and hid it somewhere. No, but his phone might. And that was, she said that earlier in the video too. He also had a smartwatch. It's not an Apple Watch, but those smartwatches would still have some kind of tracking, it would have to be sending out a signal to either connect to the boat, connect to the sailboat, or connect to their phone, or connect to the, Wi-Fi or whatever at the inn. If they had it, which I assume they did. I mean, it was it's quite a fancy resort hotel. Well, yeah, because she's taking a selfie of herself out next to the pool. So her cell phone would have been on the dinghy, most likely in that dry bag. Is that why he threw out the dry bag somewhere? Because it had the cell phone on it. She was shown in a lot of their videos swimming underwater, diving and snorkeling with her pink Apple Watch. So yeah, hers was definitely waterproof. Well, and I wonder like if there were models that were, like they used to have those like watches that you could dive with, and they showed, was it Jacques Cousteau or whatever his name was, would dive down to the bottom of some big tank with the watch, and it would be, it would take a licking and keep on ticking, kind of a thing. So I wonder if they had because they were always in the water, if they had some kind of option like that on it, like an upgrade. I don't know. So, all right, guys. So I am gonna throw my laundry in and try and get in bed and get to sleep before driver starts sawing logs, because I swear I thought I was sleeping next to a lawnmower last night. So, oh, I'm sure the Coast Guard knows too, and and they're probably working, in conjunction with each other. Yeah. So everyone have a great night and sweet dreams. Don't think about any of this stuff. Watch one of those relaxation, you see those bed videos where it's all this different fluffy stuff these beds are made out of. I don't like the syrupy ones. That grosses me out. It makes me feel sticky. But go watch one of those videos real quick before you go to bed, and just lay down and think of puppies and kitties and fluffy clouds. And everybody have a great Friday, because it is Friday and it's the end of the week. So, all right, everyone, thank you very much for coming on in. And if you haven't yet, before I forget, please hit the thumbs up button for me and hit the subscribe button, and also hit that notification bell so that you can, so that you get a ringer when we're live and you can come hang out with us. And again, if you haven't yet, check out my website. Anybody with a membership gets 20% off code posted on members only wall, and that's good for your total purchase. So before taxes, I believe. Yeah, before taxes. So it's quite a good coupon. So oh yes, I love her. Oh, that one video is awesome. Yes. So I know I'm going to be laying there in bed thinking. I'll probably watch like 3 more things while I'm laying there trying to sleep. That's why I never sleep. So. All right, you guys. I'll talk to you later. Peace, love, and claws, y'all. Good night.